So, there's only been one person ever in my life that's ever known the full range of emotion. One person individually, known the sadness, how angry I was, how mad I was about being diagnosed, and the why me. Everybody's had it. And that one person is the only person that I could hold on to, and we'll figure out who that one person is at the end of it. But it wasn't my family and it wasn't my friends, because I know that they were already overburdened by what I was going through. And 28 years ago, there wasn't a whole lot out there, and I didn't have a whole lot of you guys to talk to. So, it was, that person knew that I wanted to live life. I wanted to live more than just what that disease was going to give me. I wanted to become a doctor. I wanted to become a mother. I wanted to help other people. And through all of these journeys that I've had, I figured out how to do all of that in the best positive light. So, needless to say, my family blamed themselves. I think all the parents do at one point or another. That what if, that mercury thermometer is always in that conversation somewhere. And yes, I am that old to have a mercury thermometer as a kid. So I wanted to share my journey, my 28-year journey with you guys today, and go through, what my life was like through the lens of hope, perseverance, and ultimately love, and give you an opportunity to determine what defines you. Nope. Okay, technical assistance, maybe? It went away because the button's not working. So there you go. Okay, there we go. I figured it out. Thank you. Okay, so the question really is, what defines you? And personally, in my world, scleroderma never defined me. It was just one thing that I had. So if you look on there, it was just one of many things. I was a scleroderma warrior before that was cool. I'm a mother. I'm a photographer. I'm a clinical pharmacist. So I've been a clinical pharmacist for 10 years now. I'm a thrill seeker. So you'll see that later in the slides too. But really, ultimately, I'm the author of my own story. So I designed what I wanted out of my life, and my goal was to make that happen. So regardless of everything else, I loved life to the fullest, and I was going to do whatever I needed to do that. And ultimately, that meant being a rebel, and that was kind of my spirit, and it still is. So I don't necessarily follow the normal paths of life, and I think that that's very important in the world of scleroderma. So diagnosis, and it's really bad to have these photos. So diagnosis started, around the age of 12. So this was about the age of 12. Turning blue in class and not being able to function very well. Very fatigued. I had a lot of GI issues and concerns. And doctors basically said, this is normal, go home. And I thought, okay, well, I'll enjoy this whole Smurfette period of my life. And yeah, it was really fun getting out of typewriting class. And yes, it was typewriting class at the time. But it gave me a good excuse not to learn typing. So my patients think it's really cool that I can type really fast with 3 fingers. Because I didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if I was going to have, if I was going to have any amputations or that type of thing. And then in PE class, I got this wonderful experience of, going out to the pool in Las Vegas, and instantly the water's cold, you turn blue. So everybody thought I was dead. So it was kind of my fun as far as, I got to play Smurfette. I got to have this special little role that, I didn't have to take typing. So I got some little joys out of this one all through life. So my official diagnosis didn't really come until about 15 years old. Started having problems taking notes in class, and those notes in class made my finger turn blue and ended up needing surgery. And that doctor, read my diagnosis off of a piece of paper and had that white look, as I know some of your doctors have had. As in, we don't know what's going on. And he didn't even know how to pronounce it. And of course, that was fear with my family and, everybody blaming themselves. And, that fear ended up turning into, other things that we could do in life. And so with that, we ended up seeing Dr. Clements out in UCLA, and that was before any type of children's programs. And at that time, we decided that, we were going to make the best of this. So we had to go to California, to UCLA, and see this doctor. So while I was there, we would go see Disney World and enjoy it, have family vacations. So we made all of my doctor's visits around these trips. And we enjoyed, spending time. And you'll see my little brother, he's the baby in that picture there, along with one of my cousins. So my little brother's kind of been through the journey with me, and he's seen it through the eyes of a patient, but also somebody who wasn't going to let him get her down. So around 15, they ended up figuring out the scleroderma diagnosis, and at that time it was diagnosed as systemic, based on the textbook definition. I had more symptoms than just the skin, and it wasn't just a line. So ended up being systemic sclerosis, and every time I went to see Dr. Clements, I always had this thought of, how do I get into UCLA? How do I get into medical school here? And he kept looking at me like, I don't know if that's going to happen. But regardless, I was going to make it happen one way or the other. And Dr. Clements actually played a very important role in some of my decision making along the way. And so as the years go by, with high school, senior year, that's supposed to be like your best year ever. It's supposed to be, all of these issues, all your fun events. Literally every year in high school, I was out of school for a month, basically a full month. The first year was for surgery on my hand, and had to have a digital sympathectomy and ended up losing the tip of that finger. And, for me, I thought, great, I'm out of school. Now, granted, an overachiever here. And basically I got to watch the X Games, the full X Games. We didn't have TiVo, we didn't have Netflix, we didn't have any of that, but I had cable. So I got to watch all of one season of the X Games. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And then the next year, just happened to be right about the same time, ended up, somebody stepped on my toe at a party. I tried to be really diligent, stay out of the way, not put myself in any risk because I didn't want to make my situation worse. But, one thing led to another, and, two guys ended up stepping on my toe while they were wrestling. A month or two later, it needed to be amputated. So it just ended up being kind of around the same time. So again, I got to see the X Games again the next year. So you're seeing a theme here. And then the following year in high school, they ended up deciding that, I wasn't sick. I had scleroderma, sure. But all of the symptoms I had, not being able to sleep flat, they kept telling me it was acid reflux and all sorts of other things. And, I'd go to urgent care and my physicians, and ended up being a month later. And within that month, we actually figured out that I had pneumonia. I actually had walking pneumonia. And at that point, I basically decided I'm over this. They wanted to hospitalize. And I said, no. I have some X Games to watch. So ended up spending another month at home on IV antibiotics. And again, that was my senior year. How do you miss that senior year? So this is actually a picture of my prom. I did not go with somebody because, of course, we didn't know if I was going to be able to go or not. And so this was my large group of friends, and I ended up playing poker at the table so that I could avoid anything else happening to my feet. And that is actually still talked about today at the 20-year reunion for me playing poker during our prom. And so I got more involved with the Scleroderma Foundation. My first Scleroderma conference was in 1995. And, I'll tell you, I'm sitting in a big room, all these people with scleroderma. I look around and there's one person my age. And I don't know if y'all know Chrissy, but she is fabulous. But, I looked across the room and Chrissy was not doing well. And so, I really didn't have a whole lot of people to talk to. And I'll tell you, sitting in that room, they only had one workshop going at a time. And that one workshop, they were talking about sex. And let me tell you, having my parents next to me, I just wanted to die. So it was a great conference to be able to, get the word out. I became more involved in the foundation. I did a lot of work. I started in 1994 in Las Vegas with that Las Vegas group, and ended up, doing a lot of the conferences and getting the word out there for scleroderma and educating people, because I felt that was the only hope that we had, is to educate. And through my school programs, I was able to educate doctors who, future doctors that were getting their education. So it was a good way to be able to spread that awareness and still be able to, live life to the fullest, to the best that I could. So through all of this, I did end up graduating with honors. Hey, please stop. Thank you. So we ended up graduating with honors. So yeah, I got to skip those exams. And I will tell you, my best friend said that, he would give his big toe to not take that exam and still get an A in that class. I said, cool, I'd gladly give you the opportunity. And I had a lot of fun nicknames for that. But really what it came down to is she's a little independent, if you haven't noticed. I apologize. My person that was supposed to assist today is not here, as you can tell. So, with all of these diagnoses, I basically said I was going to live regardless. And then, tragedy struck. And going away to college, I saw a friend's funeral. And it was a friend that, I'd been with the foundation for 3 years or 2 years at that point, and decided, it was her funeral. And she ended up dying from it. And to be honest, in that funeral, I actually saw myself in that, Jojo, come on. There you go. Woo. I ended up seeing myself in that casket. And, that was me. And of course, I can't lean on my family and friends because they're already scared for me. So I go away to college because, you continue on with life. And going through college, this was my freshman year in college. And yeah, that was a year straight depression. That was, I don't want to die. I'm not going to die. But I know that's a possibility. That could be real. But you know what? I'm still going to tough it out and see what I can do. And so I looked forward to Animaniacs at 3 a.m. every day, or 3 p.m. every day. It was a cartoon show that I liked to watch that helped take my mind off of it. I dragged myself to classes every day and still did what I had to do. Did I get the straight A's that I intended on getting? No. But you know what? I made it, and that's all that mattered. And so that year of depression taught me a lot of, real life, what I wanted and how could I do that with all of this monkey on my back. And so I ended up deciding that, I was going to live. And the way I chose to decide that I was going to live is I was going to get a tattoo. Because you know what? That's what you do, right? So I called Dr. Clements and I said, hey, Dr. Clements, what would I say if I said I wanted a tattoo? He said, you already have one. I said, yes, sir, I do. So I wanted to know what the complications would be. But really what it came down to is, flowers are a symbol of life. So I was going to live regardless. And yes, this is a really old picture of it. I was going to live regardless. And you know what? Through all of the tears and everything that I had been through that year, there was enough tears there to water a plant. So I figured I may as well have a flower. And there is actually a tear on one petal, because tears give life to love. And I decided at that moment I was going to live. And I was going to enjoy life and not have this monkey on my back. As we all know, scleroderma has its own way of showing you what it's going to do and what it's not. So at 19 years old, I ended up getting married because, I didn't want to die alone. I was worried about that. But I also was scared about, having children. I didn't want to leave a child without their mother. So I figured I'd shelve that one for a while and figure out what else happened. And during this time, I figured out that, I was still doing everything, still going to school, still working, plowing my way through it. Yeah, I had bad days. Yeah, I had many, many fatigue days. And you know what, as a child, having it, starting at, as early as 12, but, I actually just learned that that's not a normal existence. But I didn't know that. I just knew that this was how I was, and these were the problems I was going to have. So at 20, I was diagnosed with pulmonary fibrosis, and I was given 2 years to live. And at that point, I thought, oh crap, this is getting real. And I thought, I don't know how much determination and how much perseverance I can have through this. So they scared me with the 2 years to live diagnosis, and I took all of the drugs, and I did everything I was supposed to do, and I ended up on steroids. And so that's that picture, 6 months of steroids. And, still kind of plowing my way through it. But, ultimately, I had to make a decision. Am I going to let scleroderma determine my life? And, my thought process at the time was, I've lived this far. I'm going to keep on going. I haven't lived my life by the book anyways, so why am I going to live by the book now based on some medical book that said I was going to die? So ended up looking at all of the variety of options that we had, and I slowly weaned myself off of medications against medical advice, so I do not recommend that. But ended up realizing that there was more to life and that I was going to do what I needed to do to make this happen. And I moved, my husband at the time was military, moved to another city, and ended up getting another chest x-ray. I want to know, and I never said the word scleroderma, never said anything. I just gave them the same symptoms that I had, the difficulty breathing, and I let them recheck my lungs. Never gave them the previous chest x-ray or the CT scan. So basically, long story short, it never progressed. I don't know why. Maybe, okay, I will say I did make a lot of lifestyle changes. I did change my diet. I did worry about stress a little bit more and not just plow through it. I did think more about my, mental state and what I was, how I was doing there. But I don't know. It just worked. And so at that point, I decided, it's just one of the other many diagnoses that I have. We'll cross the bridge when we get to it. Right now, I'm stable and we're doing okay. And so I did more with the foundation. I did a lot of advocacy. I worked at I volunteered for a number of the groups. And this one right here, I'll take the thing with me here. This one is Chrissy. So I think she was one of the first stem cell transplants. But she was the only one my age, or at least close to my age at that time. So this is, 15 years later, 10 years later, and still being able to enjoy that friendship that we had created back then. And doing a lot of the advocacy work, I was able to educate others and really show them that there is more to life. And, we get to the point where, after college and after everything I'd gone through, I realized I looked around and I looked at that husband that was better than dying alone. And I actually told myself, I'm doing everything anyways. I may as well just do it alone. And, ended up divorcing him because that was the easiest thing to do. He couldn't handle the idea of scleroderma. And I'll tell you, I gave him that test of, here, watch for hope and see if you can live with that. Probably the worst thing I could ever do to a poor person. But, needless to say, he just wasn't up for the challenge and he couldn't do it. And so I decided I was going to live life alone. Ended up graduating from college, got my doctorate degree, granted, shingles, the whole nine, a lot of days sleeping in my car in between classes. But you know what? I made it through it. I did what I had to do to get that doctorate degree and be able to bring all the knowledge that I have as a patient, but also now as a provider, because I could go through all of the doctorate program as a patient. I could look at these recommendations that they're giving and the education that they're providing and realize that, maybe I can make a difference here. And so graduated college, ended up, doing all sorts of other things in order to spread life and to teach others. And so one of those things was I did a medical mission in Haiti and got to help all of the Haitians and, really spread that awareness that, scleroderma is not this death sentence. It doesn't have to be. There's so much more to life. And I ended up dating this guy, which is only funny that he's in the picture. It's the only skydiving picture I had. I've gone skydiving a couple of times. You know, I got to live life without that monkey on my back for for a year or so. Ended up deciding that, you know, I wanted kids. It was time. I'd lived long enough. I didn't think I was going to leave her stranded, and figured, you know, if I did, I had, you know, a different spouse now that was able to take care of the baby. So I ended up getting married. And if you see the photos before this, as I was clicking through here to find photos, I realized that there's photos of everybody freaking out because I'm in the sun, because later in that journey, I was diagnosed with lupus as well. So taking these photos was a really interesting thing. But if you notice, it is a teal color. So, you know, my whole life has been based around scleroderma. And if you look in there, Chrissy is in the back at the top here, right there. And then Natalie is in the center, which is also a scleroderma patient. And then that one's, the flower girl is Natalie's child. So, you know, it's that the family and friends that you created along the way that made this journey worthwhile to me. Ended up, you know, getting pregnant miraculously, which it was actually very easy. And, you know, the pregnancy was hard. It was difficult. I can't say that it was a walk in the park by any means. And she came 9 weeks early. You know, big fears. But you know what? You saw her, and there's nothing wrong with her. Maybe a little bit of attitude. So, you know, I got my dream. I was able to have a child and actually enjoy the process. And yeah, after the pregnancy, it was a rough 6 months. You know, had a variety of flares, had other issues, but you know what? You know, that baby made it worth it to me. So through all of this, you know, everything that we'd gone through, you know, she goes to every conference with me. The first one says, I love my scleroderma family. And I think the second one says, fighter like my mommy. And then the teal toes, that's another trend that we started multiple years ago. But, you know, through all of this, you know, scleroderma made me who I am. People don't understand why I wouldn't change it. And I know that sounds wrong. And in the grand scheme of things, I wouldn't be the person I am today. Scleroderma made me a stronger person, made me love deeper. It made me understand more, not get wrapped up in the drama of life, and still have the passion for the life that I wanted. So I took every opportunity to stop and smell the flowers, take the trip that I wanted, even if that meant more fatigue, you know, help people with their difficulties and challenges, and really stop to educate people on how to empower themselves to be active participants in their healthcare team. And, you know, ultimately take control of my life and write my own story. So I am hoping today that you take these experiences that you learn along the way, and you live life to the fullest, always, each and every day. No matter how you feel and what you can physically do, you can always live life to the fullest. Make accommodations, but ultimately scleroderma does not define you. Make the memories and enjoy the happiness that you find in your scleroderma family, but also share that love with your family and friends. You may not have to share your whole journey with them. I will tell you, I have the most supportive family in the world. And you will see in the conferences now, I will bring one or two every now and then and give them a look at my picture, because I'm comfortable enough to do that now. But ultimately, they've always been behind me one way or the other. So without scleroderma, I wouldn't have had this incredibly large group of friends and network of all those people that can help me along the way. We're learning more about scleroderma every single day. There's more advances, more things that, you know, come up, more things that we can do now than what we did before. And so, long story short, you know, I hope today, if nothing else, you learned to live life and the importance of hope and persistence. Because my little JoJo is the greatest accomplishment I ever had. And had I taken that to heart and everything that they told me back then and what the medical book said, I would have never, ever tried for a JoJo. So, and I would never imagine my life without a JoJo and without scleroderma. So, as for that one person, and that one person that only knows all of my fears, that was actually the doctor that diagnosed me with 2 years to live. And you know what? He's still one of my best friends today. So, hopefully that can give you guys a little bit of hope. So what defines you as a person is not what you were born with, but what you made of it. And you know what? All the medical conditions that are out there, everybody has a problem in some way or another. At least I know what's coming, or at least I have an idea, and if not, you know what? It's just another speed bump in life. The only disability in life is a bad attitude. And so, you know, Scott Hamilton, if you watch him, he's been kicked down so many times with so many medical problems. He's a professional ice skater. You know, and this is his quote for life. And I wholeheartedly stand behind it. So, love life. Share love. Do what makes you happy. Be with who makes you smile. Laugh as much as you breathe. And love as long as you live. And then last but not least, okay, 2 more. Leave footprints of love and kindness wherever you go. So not getting sucked up in all of the drama associated with it, but knowing that there is a lot of life out there. And today versus tomorrow, you could be a beautiful butterfly. Don't lose hope, because you never know what tomorrow will bring. If you ever want to reach out, there's all my information. I am open to any conversations, any questions. If I don't know it, I know somebody in my group that does. I thank you guys for your time.
Thank you, JoAnna. This is for you, from all of us. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. All right. We're ready to move on. Thank you for stealing my job. Oh, we had fun.